I let the employees make those kind of small decisions, and I let them make them even if they're wrong. And then I come back later. I don't yell at them. I've actually never had an employee make a mistake, and I'll tell you how this one turned out and you'll understand. So like for this one, I said, okay, we need to give her all her pizzas for free. And she looks at me like, no, we're not. I'm giving her one pizza. That's all she's getting. I was like, oh, okay, sounds good. I guess you got it handled. The lady gave her $100 tip.
Wow.
Because, she was upset. She gave her the pizza, but she took care, but she also turned it on at the end and really went overboard and made sure the kid and singing and dancing and do all the things she needed to do. But that's the thing where you empower them with just the little things, let them do the thing that's easy where they can get the credit for it.
Welcome to the Attraction Pros Podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the Attraction Pros Podcast.
Hey, Josh, how are you?
Hey, Matt, I'm doing well. How are you?
I am fantastic.
Good. I'm very glad to hear that.
Yes, very good. Very good. I have a question for you.
Okay.
In all of your roles, when have you felt most empowered?
Like, you want to know specific jobs that I've had?
Either jobs or working for specific leaders. Who did you feel like you could maybe take the right actions on behalf of the guests? If we're
talking about specific leaders, then I absolutely have to refer to past podcast guest Linda Rose. See, you nodding your head there. I'm sure there was a little surprise, but I actually do think back to that role that I was in, working in guest communications at Universal, where I would say the entire team was very intentionally empowered to make whatever decision. And it was, it was empowered to offer and empowered to fulfill it, really from the end to end. The amount of trust that went to that team, that employees, that I imagine is still in place today. And even as I got promoted and became a leader on that team, I recall there being a number of times where an employee would come up to me and say, I have a guest on the phone here that wants to speak with the supervisor, wants to speak with the manager. So it would start to ascend the levels of the tiers of command, I guess you could say. And I would always try my best not to take the call and not to allow it to escalate, because the guest made the assumption that the employee was not empowered, and the employee is responding to the request from the guest. So we would say, okay, well, what is it? What's the issue? What do you recommend doing? Let's go ahead and do it. If you still don't feel like you can take care of it, feel free to pass it up. But if you pass it up, you're relinquishing control. And therefore, if I do something you disagree with, that's, it's out of your hands. And now it's what I felt would be best for the situation. But it benefits everyone if the circumstance doesn't escalate. It benefits the leader because they're not taking too much time putting out fires that their employees are able to do. Benefits the employee because they feel empowered, they feel fulfilled, and it benefits the guest as well because the guest is able to have a problem solved much more quickly. And with all that, it then benefits the business. So that is my very brief answer to your question. But I will turn it back to you. What role did you feel most empowered in?
I probably felt most empowered when I was at Universal, and I was the senior trainer of leadership development, because in some ways I was left to my own devices in terms of how I built the training programs, and certainly had accountability back to my leaders, and wanted to make sure that we were offering the things that the entire audience needed. But I think because of my previous experience in leadership and, my passion for the industry, I hope that counted for something, that they kind of said, this is yours, you take it and run with it. And I remember there were a number of different programs that I was responsible for that I kept just changing over and over again. And when it got to when I left that role, that particular program, and it was for frontline leads just coming into the role, it looked completely different than when it did in the beginning. Like in the beginning, it was a 2-day program, and it was 4 specific classes that they went through. At the end, it was like one long class with an in-park experience and all these different things. And my leaders kind of said, hey, as long as they're learning and they're getting the skills that they need, do it the way you think is best. And that is really something that has stuck with me.
So it sounds like you also had a living and breathing playbook to guide the way that you ran this department in your circle of influence as well.
I would say so, but according to our guest, I made the mistake of keeping the playbook up in my head. Today's guest.
What a great segue.
Scott Drummond will tell us more about his playbook and how he uses that to run his business, Party Center Software.
That's right. Scott's the president of Party Center Software, been in business for 23 years. Cool thing about this interview, though, is we talk about really actually kind of the topics that we just covered. We talk about employee empowerment, building a playbook, the importance of protecting your employees. So this is very much, I would say, an operational conversation that we have where we cover leadership, guest experience, employee experience, and all the above. And I think all 3 of us were pretty fired up throughout this. You can't even call it an interview, really. It was just a great dynamic conversation that I'm excited that we can share with all of you.
Absolutely. And, it's great that going through this, he shared so many of the things that he did as a leader. And quite frankly, I learned a couple things that I wish I had done back in the day when I was a leader, especially, interacting with some guests. So I'm not going to give him away. I won't steal his thunder. I want him to have that. So what do you say we get to this interview with Scott?
Let's do it. Hey, Scott, welcome to the Attraction Pros Podcast. We're really excited to have you here today. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Excellent.
Glad to be here.
We're so glad to have you here. So, Scott, can you give us a quick background and intro and bio on who Scott is?
That's a good question. That's complicated, but we'll distill it down a little bit. So, I started out in the digital and traditional marketing world 23 years ago with my own company. And so that was kind of the precipice of the beginning of Google and all these things. So, we didn't even really we didn't have phones that could get internet back then, but we had internet on the computer. And, and so I did many years of digital and traditional marketing and helping businesses kind of grow and reach. And then I kind of bought into a small little family entertainment center. It's really more of a children's entertainment center, of bouncy houses and soft play and stuff like that. Was a good friend of mine. He had bought it for his 3rd or 4th ex-wife, can't remember which, and she didn't want it. And so I just said, hey, I'll take it. And so I kind of stumbled into it, looked like a cool business. And then one day, one of my employees called in sick and said, hey, I can't make it into the party. It's Sunday. I'm like, okay. And she was probably hungover or something else, right? Because she's sick. And I'm like, well, I didn't know what time the party was, because back then, this is 17 years ago, right? Or actually probably 18, 19 years ago. We had all of our stuff written on a piece of paper on a calendar on the front desk in binders. So I had to drive all the way down early in the morning to find out when the first party was, what's going on. And I was just really frustrated. And so I said, you know what, there's got to be a way. At that time, I had a blackjack, I think it was called, and I could kind of get internet on my phone. I was like, I should be able to get something on here, like see what's going on. And so, when that kind of kicked me down the lane of trying to find a software, and the closest thing I could find was like $50,000 or $60,000. And, in my mind, I'm just trying to make 50 grand. I don't want to spend it. Right. I was like, so that's when I decided I'm just going to build an application. Party Center Software kind of came out of that, and we built it. And, 17, it's been officially available for the public, was in our own private beta for like a year and a half or so. It's been officially in the public for 17 years. And so now we're worldwide and, providing online booking, point of sale, all that kind of stuff for the industry, family entertainment industry.
Scott, have you always been an entrepreneur, or did that gene just sort of kind of come out when you had this problem and that frustration?
It's kind of interesting. I would say I probably was an entrepreneur and I didn't know it. when I was a kid, we lived out in the country. And so there's a bunch of well-off people that lived around us. And so I would, we'd eat their acreage because we had, fire control, or I'd cut firewood and sell it to them. And, I'd always make my own money. And then as I was getting towards the end of high school, I was like, oh, I guess I better get a job. And I got a job and I got my first paycheck, and there's huge taxes taken out of it. And it was like pennies. I was like, I could make this in one, in a day, what they could pay me in 2 weeks. And so then I realized, oh, I guess I could just own my own business. I didn't even know you could. I knew you could do it, but I never thought about it. I never thought that I could do that. I was just trying to make money. And so, yeah, I think it kind of just spurned out of it, just problem solving. Entrepreneurship is just problem solving continually, every minute.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally agree. And, such an interesting story, because kind of like Matt said, this was, it was born out of frustration. And, they say what necessity is the mother of invention. And,
Yep.
There are many businesses that started out by somebody being frustrated and saying exactly what you said. There's got to be a better way. And I feel like the easy part is recognizing what the problem is, but then the difficult part is then bridging the gap. And then now you actually you've created the solution because it didn't exist. What are some of those steps kind of between that of saying, okay, you're owning and you're operating an FEC, and then now you've kind of pivoted really sort of a 180 from, location-based, operations to now, a technology that then supports that, and being kind of a tech entrepreneur from that standpoint. So what were some of the steps in between recognizing the problem as the operator and then creating the solution as the provider?
Yeah. So that is exactly fundamentally what happened. So the first problem was, when are my parties? What's happening? What's going on? Why can we not book them online? Which wasn't really a thing back 18, 19 years ago. I mean, it kind of was, maybe. We kind of had, people always just assumed Google and everything was around, but, it wasn't necessarily around, doing like in the way that we know it. And Shopify and all these other things didn't exist, right? They're online purchasing. It was kind of like maybe, it was a very iffy thing. So we were right at the front end of that. So we would create, we tried to create this software to try to do these things and do a point of sale and kind of just take care of my problem. And then, the very first sale I ever sold, because eventually I spent so much money building this thing, I may have had a false start or two building it out, because I didn't know, what am I? I'm just a guy that knows how to like create pretty flyers and ask people to come into the business. Like, I don't know software. I don't know anything. I'm technically kind of a nerd, and I know computers, but not software. And so, I might have had a false start or two fumbling through, oh, that didn't work, let me redo the whole thing. And we got to the point where, we got like one of the interesting key features, and it's an example of something that got built in, was there's a checklist component in our software, which is one of the key things that people use. They don't ever ask for it. They never ask for it. But once they realize it's there, it's one of the key features. So like this actually happened. An employee took a phone call late at night. It's like 7 o'clock at night. Mom wants, she originally had one pizza on order. She had like 35 people, 40 people coming, want one pizza. She says, oh, I want 4 pizzas. Well, the employee made the modification, but we didn't actually do pizzas in-house. At that time, there was a pizza place that was 2 doors down, and we weren't allowed to sell pizza based on our lease agreement. And so we had to buy from them. And they gave us a great price, so it all worked out fine. But the employee they updated our system, right? But they didn't tell the pizza place, and nobody knew. And so one pizza shows up, the mom's like, that's great. What's everyone else going to eat? And she's freaking out. So we're scrambling to find it. And basically that night, I said, this will never happen again. And within a few weeks, we had a checklist where if you modify something that's critical like that, it throws all kinds of errors and the system's yelling at you. And so you'd walk in and go, what happened? You can see, oh, we never told whether it's an in-house, in-house cafe or pizza, or whether outside, it would tell them, you never notified them. And so, since then, we never had a problem, because all those last minute slip-ins, oh, sure, and you update it, and then you walk away and you totally forget you did it. Also, we could tell exactly who did it, when they did it, how they did it. So when Billy says, I didn't do it, yeah, Billy, last night at 7 o'clock, you did. We saw it. It's right there. So just a lot of those, just every one of those little things that just, eats at you. And it's not that big of a deal for the mom to get her pizza. I mean, for us, it's not that big to get it 10 minutes late or 15 minutes late, but it's the end of her life. Like, the whole thing is just terrible. And I remember laughing because they only ate like a half a pizza extra. We got them 4. They only ate 1.5 pizzas. They still had 2.5 pizzas left. And the mom was so upset. We had to give her the pizzas for free. And I was just like, and we could have been solved with a simple check to make sure that the pizzas were ordered from the pizza company. And those are those little things, and they just build. And eventually the software just got so big that I couldn't run the business anymore. And so we kind of sold that off and just went full time with the software, and it just took off.
Scott, that's a great story of just kind of how you'll learn along the way, right? And I'd love to hear if there's some other lessons that you took away from that process that even you still use now in running your business that you learned along the way in building the software. Well,
here's a funny one. I got taught this by myself, which is a funny way to say it. So this was back when Traintertainment was just coming. I think we probably went to the first IAPA together or something a zillion years ago. And Beth Stan's Traintertainment had this binder. In fact, I still have it on my desk somewhere. It's a binder or a little thing full of DVDs and CDs and all this stuff. And I'm telling everybody, this is the great way to do parties. And so I'm just rah, rah, rah. You got to do it this way. And I'm basically, let's say, barking at them. These are high school, college kids. I got some younger moms that work for me a little bit here or there, but I'm just kind of, we got to do this. We got to do this. I'm all excited. And like weeks go by, no one's doing what I'm telling them. No, I'm trying to figure out a way to make them do it. I'm just desperately, and they just refuse, right? And they don't refuse because they're being mean. They have other stuff to do, and I'm not there all the time. And so finally, I just was so frustrated. I said, forget it. And I just threw the book at them and I said, you guys tell me if this is even worth doing. Like, here's all the stuff. You go have a pizza party at somebody's house, watch the DVDs, and you let me know, and we'll come back in a week or two, and you tell me what's good or bad about this. And unbeknownst to me, that was a genius idea, because they all took it as they're the experts, and we're going to tell him what does and doesn't work. Well, they're watching all her training, her videos, and like, oh, this is perfect. We're going to do this. And said, you tell me how you guys want to run it. And they gave me a full presentation on this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. And it was literally verbatim what was on the DVD. So I was like, wait, this is what I told you to do, a month ago. And I said, well, great. Then you guys better manage it yourselves. And boy, they were on top of each other. If somebody didn't present something the right way, or didn't set the table up, or didn't talk to the mom and give her the feedback the way she needed it, the other employees were on them about it, little stuff like that. Or, so that's one of the ways. One other trick I did, and, I don't know if this is super kosher, but I put a big giant calendar in the office where everybody checks in and does everything. And the manager would grade their cleaning. So we'd write their names, whoever closed the night before, and we'd grade them A through F. And if you got enough A's or above for the week, you got a $5 Starbucks card. Now, $5 is a lot 20 years ago or 15 years ago. Maybe it has to be 10 now. But the point was that if Starbucks card didn't mean anything, it was the fact that they had a letter grade with their name attached to it that everyone else could see, because they knew if they got a C and then they write bathroom trash, pee on the floor, it's like all of a sudden they're getting shamed into performing. And our performance on cleaning went through the roof. Everybody was on top of it because they realized, oh, I can't just take the trash out and call it good because I'm going to get called out on it. So there was just little tricks like that. So, and that kind of leads into one of the resources that we created was a playbook internally to, well, we do one here, we do one, and we actually have a guide on Party Center software. You can look it up. There's like how to make your own playbook, and it's everything you'd think it would be, right? To how to run your business, how each employee does every little thing and why they do it. And anytime there's a problem, well, what do I do if X? What's in the playbooks? And the employee can just look it up. So as they start to decide to do things their own way, you can kind of guide it back and say, no, this is how the playbook says we're supposed to do it and why we're supposed to do it that way, and as new things pop up. So, that's definitely a resource that people should look into kind of picking up from our website. It's a huge tool that we use internally to mitigate any of those problems. And that back then was the start of our playbook, where they had sheets of paper and processes and binders of how to do things and when to do them.
Yeah. The example you gave there of the cleaning procedures, it's really interesting because it's a little bit carrot, a little bit stick. There's the Starbucks gift card that's the reward for doing a good job. But if you're not performing well, everybody knows. So you want, you've got two reasons why you should give it your all when you're cleaning those restrooms and focusing on the sanitation. You mentioned the playbook right there. Would love to talk about that, because in addition to the software, you also put out a lot of great relevant content that the industry is able to use to be able to benefit their business. So first, can we actually talk about why a playbook is so important? I know you touched on it a little bit, but would love to expand on why it needs to be so critical to running your business.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has one, but most people just put it in their head and they try to sprinkle it out to their staff as best they can through training a little bit. And so everybody has a process they go through and the things they want to do and accomplish, whether it be as simple as when somebody walks in the door, how do you greet them? Do you look them right in the eye? Welcome, good morning, good afternoon. We'll be right with you, acknowledging their existence when they walk in. Or, how do you greet a party? You hold the banner with the kid's name and their age, and you smile and hey, how you doing? And you greet them and you ask them whatever. So these processes already occur. You already know you do them. The difference is, well, we all know employment is churning constantly. So we always have a new person in, we're always hiring, we're always training. And so the playbook it allows you to rest on the playbook. So, I mean, even me, supposedly that, I run the company and I know all these little things. Half the time, well, I've been called out several times where I'll say, what are we doing about X? And, my marketing manager will be like, did you read the playbook? All right, I'll go read the playbook. Right. So I look it up. It's all right there. It's written out in detail. Everything you get everyone to know why we do it, what's the point. And it does all aspects of the business, whether it be the cleaning, the cooking staff, the party host, the front, the phone etiquette. How do you answer? How do you respond? How do you talk? How do you walk through, which I'm sure is stuff you guys, touch on when you're consulting with places. When somebody says, how much is a birthday party? You never say $14.99 a kid. You never say that. What do you say? Oh, that's great. So who's this birthday for? What's their name? Oh, they're turning 9. That's a great age for this place. They're going to love it. Does he love laser tag? Does he love go-karts? We've got all these awesome packages. So what kind of experience do you want? Right? Nowhere did I mention dollars, right? And so that playbook helps you kind of take, hopefully, I would recommend, if you reach out to an expert, you guys there's a lot of them that are out there that have, valuable assets to provide to FECs and can help kind of fine tune that process and fine tune that playbook, but find somebody that's an expert and have them help you walk through that process, and then, all the playbook will just list out every little thing you need to do and how you need to do it. And then when something new pops up, hey, that's not in the playbook. Guess what we're putting in? You just type it up, put it in there, and eventually we like to sprinkle in a combo of text and videos where we'll have either examples of things, we'll do videos, or we'll do an audio recording or something and show our employees how to do it or why we're doing it, and just to help with the consumption and retention for the employees. And
your resource is really about teaching people how to put together their own playbook, right? Because it's yours wouldn't necessarily be the same as everybody else's.
Oh yeah, the materials that we provide, so one of you kind of mentioned it, but one of the things we worked on and have really focused on is providing resources to the FEC community, not just customers. If you want to be a customer, that's awesome, but you don't have to be a customer to get access to any of our. I mean, we have arcade revenue prediction, how to market your business, details on that, and then how to build a playbook, right? So we're not going to give you our playbook because it means nothing, right? You have a very specific process and business. I mean, even a direct competitor of ours would use a completely different playbook, right? It wouldn't use our playbook because it wouldn't make sense for their product or service. So yeah, our resource is just how to build your own. It goes step by step and shows you examples and walks you through what you need to do to build your playbook. So yeah.
Scott, what's the difference then between a playbook and an SOP, or a standard operating procedure and instruction manual? It sounds like there'd be a lot of parallels, but you kind of build the case that this is a little bit different from that, if I understand correctly.
SOP, I would say an SOP is maybe more formal and more, I don't know. I mean, most of the SOPs get real heady. A lot of, they just use language and information that if you would have to know already what to do, right? An SOP maybe a more, because we've got high school and college kids that know zero about anything coming in. When you start talking about whatever terms you're using, they're like, I don't even know what that means, right? So I would say maybe a playbook is a little more of a step-by-step procedure, and kind of here's an example, and here, kind of maybe just more of like, this is how you do it rather than this is what you do. Kind of process. So there, probably different terms for relatively the same thing. I just think SOPs have been around for a long time, and I've never really seen one that I like to read that help. But most of them, again, were very technical or very specific to the function of that job, which the playbook is also very technical and very, very specific to the job, but it's specific to the problems. Like, this problem will occur. This is how we respond. Customer is a frustration of X. This is how we respond, and this is how we expect you to respond. And then if you don't respond this way, we're going to then train you and show you why we respond this way and why we do it this way.
Yeah. And I think even though you can draw parallels, just the name playbook, I think, is something that most people would want to go read or go look it up as a resource rather than go get the SOP, go get your operating procedures. Just that just seems like something that you would want to research a little bit more and go find that information. So
yeah, and SOPs are kind of stuck in stone, right? Whereas a playbook is very intentionally designed to let your staff actually influence and create. So if an employee comes and says, "Oh, I had X problem," with like, "Congratulations, you just got yourself some homework. Go put it in the playbook." Right, and tell us what you do, and then it gets approved by the managers and all that. But the employees are so dialed in that 99% of the time it's like, "Oh yeah, well, let's just reference them back to this other thing that we do in case this happens. But yeah, you did it right. That sounds great." Mm-hmm. So,
would love to know then, actually, being able to involve and engage your employees who, whether it's their first time job or whether they've come from other jobs, they probably aren't used to they're not used to having that much influence over the operating procedures or the playbook. So what are some of the best ways to be able to, I would say, empower employees to maybe bring up those types of suggestions in a way that doesn't come across as saying, I disagree with the playbook, it needs to be changed? Because ideally it needs to be kind of the anchor document that you use to run your business, but also balancing that with recognizing that this is a living, breathing document and does need to be changed and updated over time.
Yeah, we allow dissent. I mean, we encourage it. I think that comes from the top down, where I actually invite it. So when I have like one-on-ones, I say, what are some, like, what do you not like? And if they say something, so that's interesting, let's talk more about it. For a newer employee, maybe that doesn't have as much expertise, that gives us an opportunity to teach them why we do it this way, right? And quite honestly, some of it too, and I've been called out by several employees and managers, especially over the last couple, 3-4 years. Like, you keep saying that you tried that. When did you try that? Somebody actually asked me, when did you try it? It was like 15 years ago. It's like, yeah, the iPhone didn't exist, buddy. It's like, right. Oh, you know what? I should not be that rigid. And I literally, right in the call, I'm like, or the meeting, I was like, yeah, let's talk through it, let's think through it, and let's do it, but let's be conscientious of how we failed previously and why that didn't work, and then let's move forward in this new era. So, and things move faster now. It's not like you can wait 10 or 15 years. I think 2 or 3 years you can retry things. So empowering them, allowing them to be empowered on little things, and be responsible. So we have a lot of our employees where we find what they're like. One of our guys really loves writing. Right, he's a technical guy and does support, but he really loves writing. He's good at writing. So, hey, let's just have him write some stuff. And so now he's just blowing up, writing all kinds of stuff, and really providing tremendous value for us. And it's something that he likes to do, that he's good at, and it empowers them. And then they see this lower level guy like empowered to do things, and like, well, I guess I can put some input in here too. And so they, and some of it too is you have to be willing to give them a little bit of rope and let them fail. There's been times where I knew this is not going to work, guys. You're not going to get any business coming in. It's not going to improve, but I don't vocalize that. I say, okay, I'll give you 2 weeks. I'll give you a little bit of money. You go ahead and give it a try, and they give it a try, and it fails. Maybe we'll learn something, maybe we don't, but it empowered them. Like, it was the best $500 I ever spent, because this employee felt like he had value and could put input. And then the next ideas were really good, because he started to ask for more, but not be so, I think we can do this. Okay, did you do this before? So there's a little give and take. So sometimes you have to invest in failure maybe, or invest in, educational experiences for some of them. But it's hard because, right, some of these people are turning in and out in 6 months or a year. Most of my employees, at the FEC, I kept until they went off to college. And then if they stayed local, I kept them, and I get them back in the summers just because it was a fun place to work. There was accountability, which they actually liked. Surprisingly, they liked the accountability. I had one gal, she runs up to me, this girl put an app and put her friend's name on it. It's her best friend, and that best friend leaves, and then the girl that worked for me runs up and says, "Oh, so I saw my friend, put an application." It's like, "Oh yeah, you want me to hire her?" And he goes, never hire her ever." I was like, "Whoa, really?" She's like, "Nope, I do not want to do her job for her. I love her, but she cannot keep up with the pace here." I was like, "Noted. All right, I will not tell her that." But but that's the kind of thing. She knew what was required, and she just said, I don't want to do her job. So she can just tell her we don't have a position. All right. So.
Scott, you're talking a lot about empowerment, which I love, which is something that I think that more people need to do right. And it sounds like you are doing it right in terms of giving people some rope, giving people the opportunities, letting them learn. But what I find sometimes is that people will give lip service to empowerment, and they'll say, we want to empower our employees, but they don't train them. Or if they do something slightly wrong, they get in trouble for it. They get disciplined. So what's some of your, I guess, thoughts or advice on empowerment that might help some of the people that might be listening that are a little scared to do it?
Yeah, you're 1,000% correct. 99% of the time I hear somebody, we're empowering, and you can ask one or two questions like, you don't empower them to do anything. You just tell them you empower them. It's like telling your kids you trust them, but you monitor every little thing they do. You never let them go anywhere. It's like, well, do you trust them or do you not trust them? The world can be a bad place, but you got to let them kind of get out and wander around a little bit. But yeah, so some of the little things we used to do, we used to let, once they got to a certain place and we could trust them, which, like, here's an example. So I had a girl who was she 16, I think. And I walk in, I'm in shorts and a t-shirt coming in, I wasn't supposed to come out, I was just walking in, and this mom's just chewing this girl's head off. And I don't take kindly to people yelling at my staff. So I just come in hot and heavy. And she just looks at me, points at me and says, "Sir, I'll be with you in a minute." And she just points to the chair. And it's a 16-and-a-half-year-old girl. And I'm just like, okay. So I just sit down and I pull a magazine. I'm just listening to this lady just chewing her ear off. We missed some pizza or something, or it's cold. I don't know, something dumb, right? It's just a mom screaming, yelling. And so the mom leaves and I walk up and, "What is that?" "Oh, something with pizza. I don't know, something." I was like, okay, well, I guess we need to comp for all the pizzas, but they're allowed to make that decision. So that's kind of what I was getting to, is I let the employees make those kind of small decisions, and I let them make them even if they're wrong. And then I come back later. I don't yell at them. I've actually never had an employee make a mistake, and I'll tell you how this one turned out and you'll understand. So like for this one, I said, "Okay, we need to give her all her pizzas for free." And she looks at me, like, "No, we're not. I'm giving her one pizza. That's all she's getting." I was like, "Oh, okay, sounds good. I guess you got it handled." The lady gave her a $100 tip.
Wow.
Because, she was upset. She gave her the pizza, but she took care, but she also turned it on at the end and really went overboard and made sure the kid and singing and dancing and do all the things she needed to do. But that's the thing where you empower them with just the little things, let them do the thing that's easy where they can get the credit for it. I know at McDonald's, there's a zillion times I have a friend who tried to give fries because the fries were cold, and they give back to the manager, says, "You can't give away fries." I didn't. They had cold fries. I gave them you would have done. He said, "Yeah, but only a manager can do it." I was like, "But why only? I mean, it's cold fries. He wants new fries. Give him fries." Like, why are we fiddling with the manager with this? So those little things I think you can do is empower them to do this, or empower them to give little nuggets or give little extras or whatever it is. And I've empowered it. I've never had a correct employee. They've always done it. Sometimes I've encouraged them, "Hey, maybe do a little bit more next time. That might not have been enough. Maybe it was, but you're in it. You're in it deep with that customer. You're in contact. You know what it is. So you go ahead and make that decision. But maybe one pizza wasn't enough for this, because maybe it was your decision, right? But it's always been the other way. I've never had to tell them, "Why did you give away $30 in pizza?" Never. Because once I always ask, and then they go into the store and go, "Oh yeah, we really screwed up. Yeah, that was a good call. We should definitely give them the pizzas for free." So,
yeah.
I would love to dive even deeper into this and maybe the nuts and bolts of maybe what led to that girl who was able to comp one pizza and still get that $100 tip. One of the things that I have found when it comes to employee empowerment, particularly as it results to maybe a negative guest situation, is sometimes passion and pride get in the way of service recovery. So I totally thought that story was going to end completely differently. I thought you said that this girl was amped up and was ready to protect the business over the guest experience, and the exact opposite happened for all the right reasons. So being able to empower your employees to have the bandwidth to avoid the phrase, "Let me get my manager," the McDonald's example that you gave right there. If you can't give away fries when they're obviously cold, and we know French fries at McDonald's are not a high cost item for the business and should easily be able to be a decision that a frontline employee should be able to make. But so what are some of the ways that managers or leaders can help their team members become empowered so that the phrase, "Let me get my manager," or "Let me ask my manager," disappears?
Yeah, well, it's never going to disappear, but it's funny you mentioned that. I forgot that is my technique because I do it every time. I love when people want to talk to the manager. Even now, people all the time call me, "Why don't you talk to Scott? I need to talk to the owner. I need to talk to whoever." It's like, no problem, right? So it only happens once, because I'll walk in and I'll look at the frontline employees, say, "What do you need?" And I say, "Well, this is happening." And then the person will just kind of go off on me. I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I'll just look at the employees like, "Well, what can we do for them?" And I just almost play dumb, like, "Well, okay, Kara, what can you do?" And Kara will say the same thing she just said. "Well, I'm going to give them." And she doesn't say we should. She says, "I'm going to give them, a $50 gift certificate and give them whatever." It's like, "Oh, that sounds pretty good. Does that sound okay? It sounds like that's a good plan. Is that okay?" And I just kind of play dumb, and the lady's looking at me. "Well, why are you even here?" I was like, "I don't know why I'm here. I don't know." Like I've had probably 10 or 20 people over the years tell me, "Well, why did you even get on the call?" Like, I don't know. She can handle 100% of everything, right? And it's the same way in our business now. When we have to do refunds or issues or anything, anytime it gets trickled up to me, it's like, why? I just play dumb. I don't. Okay, Eileen, can you handle it? What's going on? And it's funny because they immediately go, "Well, Eileen, can you take care of this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess you can." All right. And I'll just say, like, "I don't even know how to do it." I do, or sometimes I don't know how to go into whatever system because I don't go in there. It's like, I don't know how to press those buttons. Eileen's going to expert. She'll get it done for you. So I think that part of the empowerment, anytime there's a get my manager, the manager, you need to obviously address the customer, make them feel heard. And there's times where if there's a serious issue, I would take over. But generally speaking, I never take it over. I come alongside because it's a great learning experience. The employee's been through that, whatever it is, unless they hadn't, right? If they just came in and launched into some random employee who doesn't know anything and they're just sitting there, okay, you're not going to be able to do anything because you weren't part of the situation. You don't understand. You're just getting the brunt of it. I'll just take it. But sometimes I'll go find the employee that was. I'll usually go find them and prep them ahead of time. Mom's upset, this, and this. We're just going to play it easy, play it nice. You're going to be in charge, talk through it. Don't blame her for anything. Don't say anything. Just acknowledge what's happening, and say, "Yeah, we could have done better in that. You're right. We did make some mistakes." And 9 times out of 10, once you kind of backpedal on that, the mom will go away, think about it. She's like, "Well, actually, my kid was biting and hitting kids and being a jerk, and maybe I shouldn't have overreacted because the girl came and grabbed him by his arm and pulled him off of the girl he was biting." It's like, well, so little stuff like that.
Sounds very specific.
Yeah, it is. That was a very specific one. That customer got asked never to come back. And there are times, probably 5 or 6 times, I basically told them, you're going to get a no trespass. You can never come back here again. You will be arrested if you come back because you're just crazy. You're a horrible parent. You're a horrible person. And there's nothing I can do about that. And you're not going to ruin it for the other 100 people in here. So I don't say that to their face. It's all in my head, but I tell them never to come back.
That's not in the playbook, that script?
No, that script is not in the playbook. That is a management only script. And that's played in your head over and over. You smile and say, "Please don't ever come back."
Great. Well, I think it's interesting, Scott, because, Josh and I talk a lot about, guest recovery, and I tend to focus on the proactive side. And, Josh talks a lot about, once it's in process, what are the great tips that you can use? But one of the things you just demonstrated there is how important it is to build the confidence in your team, but also to kind of care for them, right? To protect them in some way. So by trespassing a guest, in many ways, you're protecting the team member from ever having to deal with them again. So there's got to be a balance, though, of the people that you trespass versus, hey, I think I might be losing money. So how do you kind of reconcile that? I know there's people out there that would say, well, anybody can come in, the guest is always right, that kind of thing. But, what you just said there has a little bit of a different philosophy.
Well, the trespass part, there's a certain level of abuse that you always take in customer-facing positions, and we all know it. We all have horror stories. All of us keep threatening to write a book about these stories because they're super hilarious. Some of them, once you're through the drama of it and the trauma of it, they're pretty fun to reread or kind of commiserate with. But, again, the no trespass, people that get kicked out, these aren't one-time offenders. These are multi-time offenders who we've worked with and tried and had managers ride and just really did our best. Occasionally maybe somebody may be a little bit too drunk or too whatever, and they're just abusive, and that's how they live their life. And guess what? You're not going to be abusive with my employees. Mm-hmm. And I come down like a hammer on them. And the employees know, okay, he's not going to let somebody just run over me. And you can take your $100 and run with it. I could care less, right? And that, because this employee, like just talk dollars, this employee is way more expensive to replace than you to never come back. It's just on a dollar amount, but the dollar amount, the employee replacement, I have a good employee that functions well, is a good team member, fits all the criteria I want, that's 50 times more expensive, and you may never get that person back. You're going to get a lower tier. So there's, generally speaking, the employees know, usually myself or a manager would step in if there's, kind of physical or not physical, but like verbal abuse. And it's funny, you have a little tiny, 17-year-old girl, and they try to just, a big mom or dad tries to pull them over. Well, I'm not a little guy. And so I come in and, what's going, how can I help you? Yeah. All of a sudden the tone comes down 10 notches. And it's like, okay, now that we're in the realm of reality, let's go ahead and communicate back with this person who's in charge. I'm just here to make sure that you're cordial. They're going to now take back over and kind of re-engage. And so I intentionally pull them back in, the employee back into the conversation and talk through whatever the issue was. And, normally it's the stupid. Most of them are dumb, this, that, the other, my kid got pushed or pulled or whatever. It's like, hey, these are kids, right? Life sucks. Sometimes you got to learn. So, yeah, it's just, kind of really, getting behind, the employee and knowing that they're loved and protected. And then they also have the ability to, they have the authority, right? Again, when I play dumb, my authority as the owner or the manager is then placed on them, and they act as if they're my representative while I'm standing there, which gives them ultra authority. So that, and we've had many people come back later and, I'll be in the office and I'll hear them saying something and, they'll start to go, I want the manager. And I go, well, never mind. You can just handle it. Okay. That's what we'll do. So yeah, that's, once it gets that, again, that's part of the playbook too. There's different severities of what goes on. You get broken legs or arms or different things. Okay. Now you got to get involved. Let's get going. Let's do our process and procedure. Again, you need to have a playbook for that. How do we go? Who do we contact? What do we not say? We do not communicate. We don't say, we're sorry we broke your kid's leg, right? We're sorry this happened to you. Usually that'll roll to a manager. You show empathy. In today's society, you're all going to get sued. So it is what it is. But you try to minimize that impact.
Yeah, so many great takeaways from that. One of them in particular that I gained from everything you just said there is that the lifetime value of your employee is substantially higher than the lifetime value of the guest, and that by incorporating that into the playbook, that then guides a lot of decisions that might come up with a guest being unruly, but their wallet is full and ready to spend, and making that tough decision as far as who you're going to side with and where the business benefit actually comes in with that. So I really appreciate you sharing that, and then everything from the employee empowerment and the recovery component of it, and expressing empathy in that, of course, if someone breaks their leg, the apology is, I'm sorry, weren't able to enjoy this as expected, or something along those lines, versus sorry, we broke your leg, or something like that. As we start to kind of wind this down here, because we're starting to run a little low on time, if you look back over the last 23 years that you've been running your business here, if you could give advice to yourself back then, 23 years ago, what would you tell yourself?
A lot of stuff. Buy Bitcoin would be one.
Of course.
But
didn't exist.
It didn't exist back then, or Google or Apple or whatever. No, I mean, I think it would be probably relating to the playbook, and then really, I mean, it's hard to give yourself advice, to be honest, because advice doesn't do anything. You have a scar. You remember the scar, you remember the process, you remember the victory over that scar, right? So giving advice, that's why, as great as advice is to young entrepreneurs, which we do a lot of, mentoring for young entrepreneurs or even nonprofits, and you tell them things, and I'm looking and going, you should do this. Why aren't you doing this? And I kind of get frustrated, or, internally, I don't say it to them, but but then you'll watch them a year or two later. They make the mistake you told them not to make. They get burned. They lose $10,000. Now all of a sudden they remember, and they're never going to make that mistake again. So giving yourself advice, I mean, it would be to double down on other people's experiences, and then also to be more generous with letting the employees wander, letting them, like, one of our philosophies here at Party Center is kind of, and it's an internal rule for me, it's not necessarily super pushed, but I want everyone to have 10% free time, and not really free time because they're going to be full doing stuff, but I want 10% of their time to be them deciding what they can do to better improve the business. That doesn't mean they sit there and do nothing. It means that they're not dictated what to do, right? Because everything else in our life, we're dictated. We got to do this on Tuesday. Got to do this. We got to open. So finding some time, and maybe encourage, some of these FEC owners, find 10% of their time where they get to choose. Okay, for this hour, this 2 hours, you get to choose what you do for the business. Whether you'll stand on the street with a sign, whether you sweep something, whether you post on social media some pictures or something. You tell me what you want to do, and let's do it, right? And I think if you gave kids an hour, a week, and said you have to choose what you want to do, just whatever you want to do, and the sky's the limit. You want to go out and hand out coupons somewhere else? Okay, I mean, make sure it's within your insurance policy and all that, but besides that, but give them some freedom, and you'll be surprised, especially when it comes to social media and all these things. You may find some rock stars in there that just blow up because that's their game, that's their niche, and then you allow them to run with it. So, maybe that would probably be my biggest, advice to myself.
Yeah, I love that. Well, it sounds like you've already taken that advice, right? And how much you are empowering your team. So that's fantastic. Scott, thank you so much for spending the time with us here today. If somebody wanted to learn more about you or Party Center software, where would you send them?
Well, definitely want to get them to our website, Party Center Software. And one of the big things that we want to encourage them is that, so we have the Party Center Academy, PCS Academy, and it's actually launching, or by the time this comes out, it'll be launched. It's a learning academy. It's free to anyone to join. We do offer premium content that's not available to the public if you're a member, but again, it's free. You can sign up, all kinds of short video lessons and everything to market and grow your business. So this is really to improve the industry. So we really would encourage people to come join the PCS Academy. We kind of have two different levels in there. One's for the Business Growth Academy, which can kind of grow your business, and that's for any FEC. And then we have kind of a subset that's like a training academy, and that's really for our customers because it trains them how to run their business with our software. But a bulk of our stuff really is externally focused on helping the industry and raising them up. I mean, we have everything under the sun: how to use social media, Instagram, Facebook, increasing your revenue through different ways. There's 1,000 different things you can download. Probably not 1,000, that was exaggerated, but there's a lot, right? And so come to partycentersoftware.com, sign up for the Academy. It's free. And then just, be part of the discussion. Come to our Facebook page. We have a PCS community Facebook page, which, you have to ask to join and we let you in. Everybody's in. And it's just a way to communicate and sometimes commiserate, about stuff. But that's really what we want to do, is get people to the Academy, teach and grow them, and really raise up, and even have them pour into the PCS community Facebook page with their ideas and suggestions on improving business. Because right now we all need we need a little bit of help from everybody to really fine tune, especially in hiring and maintaining staff. The world has shifted dramatically from 2 years ago on how businesses need to function, and so it's causing a lot of I think a lot more community, right? People are coming together to try to help each other, because there's things that none of us had to do 2-3 years ago, or we didn't have to do in the way we do now. So yeah, definitely partycentersoftware.com, and then our Facebook PCS community.
For sure. Well, Scott, thanks so much. We really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you. This was such a fun conversation. And I know that with the three of us, we probably could keep this going for several hours, I imagine. But out of respect for your time and for all of those out there listening, once again, we thank you so much for joining the podcast. And to everyone out there, just remember, we are all Attraction Pros.
Thanks for listening to the Attraction Pros Podcast.
Make sure to subscribe so you can tune in when new episodes release. And even better, please leave us a review on iTunes.
For more information, visit AttractionPros.com.